Welcome to Monday Night Reading. This is our last Monday night before of this until we break for the hiatus. So we're usually off in July and August because people are on vacation. So this will be our last one until the fall. And I'm so excited because tonight we have a double header with Kasey Anton and Julie Woods, both alums of Top 3 Book Workshop and both with books coming out this year. Kasey's up first. Her book Profit First for Restaurants, a derivative of Profit First, comes out on June 27th and is available now. And Julie Woods, you're August or September, right? August. Yeah. We're so excited to have both of them here today. Monday Night Reading came about because I have one foot in the world of fiction and one foot in the world of nonfiction. And I realized that my nonfiction authors weren't getting the opportunity to have readings like fiction authors have. And I thought that was silly. So I created Monday Night Reading. I'm AJ Harper. I'm the author of Write a Must Read, the co-writer to Mike Michalowicz, wrote a lot of business books, and my favorite thing in the world, the founder of Top 3 Book Workshop, and love all my students and alums so much. So tonight, how it works is that Kasey and Julie will read an excerpt from their books. I'll ask them a few questions. Kasey's up first, and then we'll talk to Julie. If you have a question, you can feel free to put it in the chat. One thing we really encourage is positive feedback. And you'll see from some of the students, from myself and from Laura and other students who are here, I see Mara, I see Vicky, I see Julie, two Julies, besides our Julie Woods, that we like to put lines we like, things that resonate with us. We save the chat for authors. You'll also get an opportunity to connect with Julie and Kasey and pre-order Kasey's book for sure and learn more about Julie's book coming up. All right. So I'm going to start with Kasey. Hey, Kasey.
Hi.
I'm so excited. I know you've been to many Monday nights. Did you imagine this would happen for you, or did you feel like it was too far away?
Yeah, I never imagined this would ever happen.
And here we are. You're right. You're
No.
having Monday night. I'm so excited. Before you read, though, I want to have Laura introduce you. So Laura Stone is our Dean of Students and the biggest cheerleader for these authors. So Laura, if you would please read a little bio about Kasey so we can all know her better.
I can't imagine anything I'd like to do more in this moment for Kasey. The Sandy Bullock of Top 3. Kasey Anton is the founder of Spark Business Consulting and author of the book Profit First for Restaurants, out everywhere fine books are sold on June 27th. But I have a secret in the chat later about that. Kasey's been in the restaurant industry for decades, working in every kind imaginable, and from the lowest position in the kitchen to running them. She's even started a few to later be sold, and now she saves them. She specializes in helping small business owners start and maintain successful growth and develop sustainable financial habits using the Profit First system. Her mission is to help clients and audiences, small and large, master their numbers and their business model, fall in love with their business, and build the company of their dreams. A born and raised New Englander, if she's not kicking it at home, she's most likely at a sporting event with her kids or at one of the many amazing restaurants in and around the city of Boston. And I'll put links for how to get your copy of her book and stay connected in the chat. AJ?
Yes, thank you so much for that bio. And Kasey's book, again, is available right now. So we would love if it fits your budget, if you would support Kasey and get her some orders today. It's this is the first day that you've been able to actually order it. So this is a big deal. Laura will put a link to order in the chat. Kasey, you know what I'm going to ask you. What are your book's fundamentals? So who is your reader? Who did you write this book for?
I wrote this book for both current and aspiring restaurateurs. So as I do my reading today, definitely keep your I want to be a restaurant owner hat on. It's for restaurant owners.
Yes. Okay. And what is your core message for them?
The core message is you don't have to struggle to make it in the restaurant business. The money is already there.
The money is already there. I love that core message so much. It's so provocative and so true. I learned so much from you, working with you, helping you develop these concepts and bring this forward. And I think that's a super powerful message, especially for your readers, because that belief, you taught me this, the belief that the restaurant industry is a struggle is just ingrained, right?
Yeah,
And you don't believe that to be true.
there's a better way.
There's a better way. And what is the promise of your book?
My promise is that by the end of this book, the reader will have a cash management system that they can put in place that'll keep their costs in line and instill permanent profitability in their business and bring them back to the joy of hospitality.
Wow, that is an impressive promise. So why wouldn't you read it? It seems like that would be a promise everybody would want who's a restaurant owner. So Kasey, what are you going to read from tonight? Which chapter 1, I believe?
Yeah, so I'm going to read a part from chapter 1. Well, actually is the beginning of chapter 1, and it's called This Is Why I Care. And I think it's the least mathy, but also is my story of why hospitality and restaurants are so important to me and to, I think, the world. And I think it really epitomizes the core message of the book.
Wonderful. So I'm going to let you get started. Here we go.
Here we go. Okay. Chapter 1. This is why I care. It's not hearts and lungs, people. It's just dinner. This may go down as one of my staff's greatest comments. Someone shouted it out during an incredibly busy Saturday night when the stress level was peaking and the chef was about to blow a gasket. But the statement was not meant to minimize or trivialize the work that was being performed that night in any way. Far from it. As a former restaurateur, current consultant, and longtime enthusiast, I believe that the work performed in restaurants across the world is some of the most important, meaningful, and significant work of our time, of any time. Because this work we do is based in joy, celebrations of achievement, relationships, self-care, and even lifelong memories. Given that the work of restaurants is so vital, it seems almost ironic that our industry suffers more than most. The COVID-19 pandemic notwithstanding, most small business restaurants, so maybe not McDonald's, have an incredibly hard time staying alive, let alone operating at a profit. On top of that, the work can at times be grueling, extremely hot kitchens, all kinds of equipment malfunctions, fire, broken glass, sharp knives, not the most reliable part-time staff, and drunken patrons. And the industry in general has a century-long reputation for being extremely demanding. Restaurants are living, breathing entities. Even if they close for a day, there are no days off for their owners. An industry whose primary purpose is to facilitate joy and celebration is also one of the most stressful and least profitable of all industries. This can't be right. And yet it is. Much like a seasonal business in which, for example, landscapers need to make their money during a short season, for restaurants, the short season is the weekend, more specifically Saturday night. Somewhere along the way, Saturday night became the bar that was set for success. That is when the restaurant is operating at capacity and fully staffed, reservations are sold out, the kitchen bustles all day with deliveries and prep staff, pre-shift meetings are mandatory, and the buzz in the air is unlike the energy at any other job you may have had. As I write this paragraph, I can almost feel what it's like to prepare for a big night. This is our Super Bowl, but it doesn't happen once a year. It happens every Saturday night. Exciting stuff, right? It is. Except it comes with some baggage. If this is where we set the bar, then any other night that doesn't measure up is a failure. Once we know what our restaurant is capable of, we want that all the time. Who wouldn't? There are few restaurants, and I mean very few, that frequently operate at capacity. Some have several Saturdays each week, not just one, but these are the unicorns. And just like real unicorns, you don't see a lot of them. But this is where we set the bar, so we keep going after it. The problem is when we set our expectations too high and can't achieve them, frustration ensues. We start looking in all the wrong places to solve this problem. Constantly trying to solve the problem that every night isn't Saturday night is costing you more than you may realize. Maybe you recognize some of these solutions. It must be the menu. So changing menu items is costly both in time and money and lacks consistency, so that doesn't help. We need more advertising. Advertising can get very expensive, is difficult to measure in terms of effectiveness, and almost never helps. Maybe it's the prices or the color of the walls or the concept itself. Again, these changes can be expensive and time consuming, and they come with no guarantees. Maybe you have tried one or all of these solutions, or maybe you just keep doing what you're doing week in and week out while secretly or not so secretly praying for another Saturday night. And when that doesn't happen, you hang your head, review your options, realize you don't have the time or the money to execute any of the options, and go back to doing what you've always done: hope and pray for another Saturday night. Repeat. This struggle is real. So why do we do it? Our beliefs about the restaurant industry. When I was little, and as far back as I can remember, all I wanted to do was own a restaurant. Occasionally, my parents took me and my two older brothers out to dinner at Lum's, a small family restaurant located in the only strip mall in Old Saybrook, Connecticut at the time. I remember the dark wood tables and chairs, the worn red carpet, and the smell. God, how I love that smell. To me, it smelled like happiness from the moment I stepped through the door. The aroma wrapped me up and transported me to a place where my family could all sit at the same table and not get yelled at for being picky eaters or just being idiots. We could order whatever we wanted off the children's menu, which was filled with possibilities: hamburgers, chicken fingers, French fries, all the things I loved and none of the homemade healthy stuff I hated. And that aroma? Come to find out years later, that magical scent was grease. You know what? I don't even care. I loved it then, and I still love it now. Grease is the word, as they say. Even at a young age, I knew that eating out every night was unrealistic. My parents constantly reminded us that money doesn't grow on trees. But all I wanted to do was recreate that experience of eating at a restaurant as often as possible. And I'm not talking about pouring cereal into bowls and serving those either. Once a week, almost every week for years, I set our rarely used dining room table and cooked a 3 or 4 course dinner just for my parents that was ready when they got home from work. I was the hostess, waitress, prep cook, and chef. I'd pour them water, serve them bread, cook the food with a little help from my mom, and plate it up as prettily as I could. And because I was so thoughtful and ambitious in designing these restaurant at home nights, I rarely had to be the dishwasher. We left that to my brother, Matt. I vividly recall making stuffed mushrooms for an appetizer one night, followed by a garden salad. I believe I also made chicken Kiev and rice pilaf for the main course, with brownie sundaes for dessert. Don't get too excited. The chicken Kiev came frozen and fully cooked, and it's hard to screw up a box of rice-a-roni, but I heated those up like a champ. I was an ambitious 10-year-old. I knew what I wanted and was going after it. And I think my parents enjoyed those nights overall. I mean, not all my dishes were winners, but in the end, they didn't have to cook. Even with all that youthful chutzpah, though, my parents begged me not to go into the restaurant industry. Neither of them had ever worked in hospitality, but even they had heard the stories. They would say, it's a grueling business. And while it was fine for a part-time job while I was in school, they made it very clear that they did not want me to make a career out of it. My dad would tell me the failure rate of restaurants, 50%, and that I'd be better off with a more professional career choice. I started working in restaurants as a dishwasher at Bonanza when I was 14. Though my passion for the restaurant industry had not wavered, my parents felt the same about hospitality when it's time to look at colleges. It's too narrow a path, they would say, and I honestly believe they thought I would grow out of this phase. Out of respect for my parents and adhering to their words of caution, I did not go to college to study hospitality. I went to the University of Rhode Island, where I studied communications and business. And what did I do when I graduated? I got a job at the Chart House restaurant, and a year later, I entered their industry-renowned management training program, CHAMP, which stood for Chart House Administrative Management Program. From a very early age, I was taught that a career in the restaurant industry was an undesirable path and would lead to a life of struggle. And you know what? My parents may have been right. We all have our lums and our dreams and stories from childhood. We have also absorbed early messages that formed our belief about the restaurant industry and that it's hard. Because this is what we've been told, we're not surprised when it is. While we may complain about working doubles, pulling 18-hour shifts, and working 7 days a week, including all holidays and weekends, we think it's just the way it is. There is a belief within the industry that working in a restaurant is a daily battle. There are always a million things happening and a zillion moving parts, which means about a trillion things that can and often do go wrong. This is the norm, a constant headbutt against a brick wall. Take a moment to think about the restaurant bosses you've had. Chances are they weren't the happiest people you've ever met. When I think back to all my bosses, from those early days at Bonanza to the Steak Loft in Mystic, Connecticut, to the Chart House in Boston and many places in between, the word happy is not one I would necessarily use to describe many of them. Stressed, overwhelmed, on edge, and unhappy better describe their state most of the time. This is certainly true of the chefs I've worked with. What started out as a fun or exciting build-up to a busy night ahead almost always ended with screaming, yelling, F-bombs and insults flying, finger pointing, and tears being shed, usually less than halfway through the night. You got to have thick skin to work in this business was often used as an excuse for this behavior. Why do we allow it? Because it's what we were taught to expect. It's part of our belief system and how a restaurant is supposed to function. It's supposed to be hard. We believe it's the cost of entry, the cost of experiencing the kind of energy and excitement you don't get to experience in other jobs. And this is the status quo. But it doesn't have to be. A better way. There's always a better way. While the restaurant industry is flooded with overworked and overstressed managers and owners, there's always that one exception to the rule. Mine came in the form of Todd. He was a dining room manager for the Chart House in Boston when I first started there. He hadn't been there long, but boy, did he stand out. Why? Because he was always smiling. He was always happy. Nothing could bring this dude down. Todd was great at his job, and everyone wanted to work on his shifts. And this wasn't because he had the best shifts or because he was great at filling out end-of-night paperwork. It's because he was just a pleasure to be around. As a manager, Todd set the tone. He knew what most of us easily forgot, that we were serving dinner, not solving world peace, that our guests were there for a joyful evening, and that our job was to ensure that happened. Period. Case closed. If we could get on board with that, if we could focus on providing a wonderful dining experience, then we could all be on the same page and ensure a smooth night ahead with no reason for screaming, yelling, F-bombs and insults flying, finger pointing, or tears being shed. We could all participate in the joy. I vividly recall one evening when things were beginning to heat up, the restaurant was filling quickly, and the kitchen was humming. I needed Todd's help. I don't remember exactly what the issue was, but I do recall feeling anxious as I approached him about whatever problem I was having. Todd, I said nervously, I have a question. Before I could finish my sentence, Todd smiled and said, well, Kasey, I have the answer. This simple reply shifted everything for me that night and for many nights to come. It reminded me that no matter what was going on or what I was about to ask, there was a simple enough solution. We, after all, were serving dinner. It taught me that getting stressed out wasn't going to help anything or anyone, quite the reverse. And while it wasn't Todd who shouted out, it's not hearts and lungs, people, it's just dinner, that happened many years later, he innately knew this to be true. Which is why the shifts he ran were the most popular, the most fun, the least stressful, and provided the best guest experiences. Win, win, win. And while I was not involved with the finances of the Chart House at the time, I have no doubt that these nights were not only successful from an overall experience viewpoint, but also from a financial one. Our beliefs about the restaurant industry and money. Not only do we pile on the pressure through our belief that we must recreate Saturday every night of the week and that it will be a hard and painful process, we also believe we have to struggle with the money. After all, if we set the bar at a Saturday night of sales, anything less is failure, which means we will always come up short on getting the vendors paid on time, short on ordering the supplies that we need, or late getting the equipment fixed, possibly short on payroll. Eek. And definitely short on paying ourselves in profit. We will always struggle to pay our bills and meet our obligations on time. We have accepted this as the norm and do nothing about it because it is considered the fate of a restaurateur. One of the many problems with that is the rest of the world thinks we're loaded. How many requests do you get each year to donate a dinner for two to some random club you've never heard of because it'll be great advertising? Translation, you're a restaurant. You make tons of money, right? There's no money. And if you really think about it, it kind of makes sense that there is no money. Let's look at it this way. There's only so much you can charge for a steak. Consider the math. A decent steak may cost a restaurant $15 to purchase. If you own a nice steakhouse, you might be able to charge $45 for that steak. That's a $30 profit, right? Nope. Because that profit doesn't include paying the chef who grilled the steak, or the kitchen manager who ordered and received it, or the prep cook who prepared the grill station, nor does it include what you pay the dishwasher to clean not only the dish the steak was served on, but the glasses, the silverware, the grill, the entire kitchen, and oftentimes the restaurant as well. It doesn't include what the waitstaff, bussers, food runners, bartenders, barbacks, valets, hosts, assistant managers, dining room managers, sommeliers, or general manager get paid. Certainly doesn't include the cost of rent, utilities, linen, insurances, there are many, menus, computer stuff, dues, licenses, office supplies, dishes, silverware, glasses, to-go boxes, to-go anything, advertising, marketing, credit card fees. I could go on and on, but you get me. Know what else it doesn't include? The complimentary bread and butter you provide at the beginning of the meal, or the candle, the salt and pepper, or any other condiment. The result? To make a buck, you'd better sell a lot of steaks, and I mean a lot. Some places do just that. Even if you're not a steak person, you may have heard of Ruth's Chris, Morton's of Chicago, the Capitol Grill, even the 99 restaurant, though whether we call that a steakhouse is debatable. These places sell a lot of steak. I am guessing that the owners of these restaurants are not reading this book. That's not to say they shouldn't. But if you're selling enough steaks to pay your bills and have something left over, that's winning the lottery by restaurant standards. Unfortunately, most restaurants, especially the smaller independent restaurants that I serve, do not sell quite as many steaks. If they're lucky, they might sell a good amount on a Saturday night. That Saturday night might be profitable on its own, but it's not on its own. That Saturday night needs to feed Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, maybe even Friday night, when too few steaks are sold to pay the bills, much less turn a profit. This formula of waiting, hoping, and praying for fortune like that of the steakhouses I mentioned above, that every night of the week will turn into a Saturday night, creates an environment, a culture of constant weekly cyclical struggle. And this pattern of living for another Saturday night keeps you in a state of constant struggle. It's the wrong mindset. You don't need to keep looking for another Saturday night. As a matter of fact, the sheer act of searching for this rare unicorn is what is holding you back. Your struggle affects everyone and everything. The emotional and financial stress that you consistently suffer affect every component of your business, and ultimately, they affect your bottom line. You don't have to struggle to make it in the restaurant business. The money is already there.
Woohoo! That was so fun to hear that again. It's been a minute.
Yeah, you've heard that a lot.
Yeah. First of all, you did fantastic. That was a great reading. Did you write did you create an audiobook?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good. And you read it yourself?
Yep.
Okay. And that'll be available soon?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That was great. Yeah, I could tell from everybody's faces people were really enjoying your reading of it. So
good.
That was fantastic. What does it feel like to read that out loud to a group of folks?
I don't know. I mean, it was similar to me reading the audiobook, because I was just thinking like, who's actually going to listen to this? But now I actually have people live. It's like a surreal feeling. I couldn't see any of you, thank God. I had my PDF in front. I did not want to see what people's reactions were. But, every time I read it, the more I read it out loud, and I actually read it out loud quite often, the more it kind of sets in like, yeah, this is me. This is who I am. And this is what I believe.
For sure. That comes across so strong. And when you were in workshop, your voice immediately was so strong just from the get, and leaning further into that was the way to go. And so from word one, page one, everyone knows exactly who you are. So I think that's wonderful. I always ask a few questions at this stage, and I want to ask you, what is the change you want to see in the world through your book? So because your book exists now, what is the change you hope happens?
Yeah. So this is what I really hope that happens. I hope it gets into the hands of enough small restaurateurs or any restaurateur that has been in this state of struggle and is open enough to see there's another way and follows what I teach. So not only is there profit first in there, of course, and so there's the system, but there's also some other goodies in there in terms of some very simple marketing things they can do, some internal culture things that if they were to even pick a few of those out and implement them, not only will they turn their restaurant financially around, which will immediately lift so much stress off their shoulders, they'll get back to just loving what they do, which is exactly what restaurants are supposed to do. You love on your customers, right? You're there to create this experience that they're going to want to talk about and tell all their friends. And I feel like we don't see a lot of true hospitality anymore. And so that's what I really want to bring back to the world, is that connection to their guests and wanting to bring joy to them. And that's what I hope it does.
I love that answer. What kind of feedback have you received from readers so far, advanced readers who've read this book?
So, so my early advanced readers were great. A lot of them are like, oh my God, you nailed it. Amazing. Then I sent it to clients later on. I did not want my clients to be advanced readers, right? Because I didn't want them to be biased. They're like, where have you been hiding this? So these are clients that have been around. So that was great. The interesting part that I don't really know how to take is that I actually went back into the people that I used to know when I was in the restaurant world in Boston, and I reached out, and that was 20 years ago. So I didn't think they'd remember me. Most of them did, and I sent them the book, and some had the same responses, like, "Oh, this is so great, Kasey. I loved hearing these stories," or "It brings me back." But a couple of people, to be honest, were just like, "Wow, like that wasn't my experience in the restaurant industry." That was only one person, but it was interesting because I know this guy and I know it was his experience. So I'm like, okay, I don't know why you're saying this. So it's interesting. I think I've hit a nerve, right? And it may not always be well received. I think overall it will be, but it might not be. But I'm glad I hit that nerve, because that's what I'm trying to change, like the paradigm of how people feel that, to be in the restaurant business means you're going to struggle, because you don't have to struggle. And it is what's holding you back. We can turn that around and remember that we're here to bring joy to people through food. And it's all about love. Like, I think it'll change everything.
Yes, I love that. It was only one voice. This is an
It was.
author thing, though. I got 20 people said one thing and one person said this other thing. So the one thing is the thing that sticks in your brain.
I know.
But I did learn so much from you about the restaurant industry, and maybe it's something like people who are struggling but just reframe it for themselves every day so that they can get through it. Who knows? Maybe they just can't think that. I want to also point out, you said you had this is a derivative of Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, specifically for restaurants, and you mentioned that there were some bonus things. They aren't just bonus things. The marketing chapter is so good, and in fact there's a little piece in there that was actually in one of Mike's books, but this is the full story, and it's amazing for almost any business. Actually could really take cues from it.
Mm-hmm.
And not just culture, you also talk all about understanding business model and understanding
That was a big one.
That's a big, I mean, this is really I feel like a person who has a restaurant or is starting a restaurant, this is not just about Profit First. This is about how to run that restaurant. Yeah, for sure. What was surprising for you about the author journey?
I mean, my first thought is how, it took me a little over 18 months to write the book, right? But that I was told it was going to take me that long. So I can't say that's surprising, and that it would be a daily practice. And it was. So I feel like I've given birth, sort of, like I'm past that. I think now it's the marketing piece is what's really surprising me, that it's alone, like that feels like a full-time job. And it's only because it's not because I need to sell a lot of books. I think I told you in the beginning, like, it doesn't even matter to me if I sell one book. I just didn't want anyone else to write this book. That was the whole reason I wrote it. I didn't want anyone else to do it. That's no one can buy it. I'd be okay with it. But now it's more like, now that it's finished, I do think it's important. I think there's something for everyone in that genre to read it. So now I really do want to get it in the right hands. And I will add that, so I am making a workbook that goes along with it. And it's not done, but I am so proud of this work. It's beautiful the way it's coming out. It's like a map, and it's going to go hand in hand. And that was surprising that I never even thought of that to begin with, to create a workbook. And here's why I came up with it, because one of my VAs is trying to get me booked to speak at all these like universities and colleges and conferences. And I'm like, ugh, I'll do it. But I literally hate speaking in front of groups. I'd rather do workshops because it's just more, it's more personal, and that's more me.
Yeah.
But then I thought, what can I do so I can get more workshop gigs? And then I thought, oh, I'll create a workbook. And then it just went from there. And that's been the most fun piece of this, is creating this workbook to go along with it. I love it.
I can't wait to see the workbook. That sounds amazing. Can I just say, for everybody here, if you have a favorite restaurant in your area, you know how sometimes in my town, I live in Nyack, New York, it's about 6,000 people. If we have a restaurant that closes, we all mourn it, you know? So what I'm going to do is buy multiple copies of this book, and I'm going to go give it to my favorite restaurants so that they will stick around. So if you have a restaurant you love, get a copy. This may not be your jam. You may not be the ideal reader, but this is an easy reason. I mean, seriously, out of the pandemic, I lost so many restaurants I didn't want to lose. So I'm going to go, you know, I'm always ordering takeout to try and keep it going. But I think this is the thing that really helps, is please read this book. Here's my gift to you. I really hope you'll stick around. I think that's a high recommend from me, and something you can do to support the restaurants in your area is to get Kasey's book, because I have read that thing, and if they actually follow it, they'll stick around in your community. All right, so everybody, Kasey, do you want people to go buy the book directly from Amazon, or is there something else you want them to be aware of that you'll be doing in this month for marketing? Anything you want people to join?
Yes, there's a link through profitfirst4restaurants.com/launch partner. If you're interested and you do post on social media, if you click on that and just put your name and email, we're not going to add you to some crazy spam list at all. It's just that we'll send you some assets so that on right before June 27th, just some posts and some language you can just copy and paste to your social media. Because from what I'm learning about this marketing piece, which again is not my wheelhouse, so it's, you know, it's like Greek to me. The more people that post on the same day, it helps with the Amazon rankings, I think, or something like that. So that's what I was told to do to get my goal, to get as many people to sign up using that launch partner link, and then you'll get the assets. Then you just have to copy and paste them into your social, and then hopefully that'll raise the awareness on that day, and you know, I'll take it from there.
Awesome. And for anybody wondering, the assets just means stuff that you can use to promote, you know, graphics and other content. So it can just take you 5 seconds instead of 5 minutes to post in support of the book. So that's what those assets are. Thank you so much, Kasey. You did a fantastic job. I already placed my order, and I'm so excited for you. Couldn't be more proud.
Thank you so much.
All right, everybody. Next up is Julie Woods. Julie, you ready to rock?
Yes, let me come off mute. So, hi everybody.
Hi, how are you tonight? Are you excited for this reading?
I am.
I think you like Kasey might have thought, I wonder if this day will ever come.
Yeah, I'm not. Hold on one second.
You want me to turn mine off?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm making Brad turn his off. We're up at my office because it's storming here in Kansas, of course. So, well, actually it's not this second, but anyhow, I was getting feedback, but yeah. So I'm almost 2 years into this. So Kasey, I feel ya. And again, AJ warned me, and but I just never I just love the concept of the reading, because like you said, this isn't a book, and I'm going to read a less mathy part too, so that people can kind of get a feel for me. And I recognize a lot of names on here tonight, but it's very surreal to be doing it, and it's exciting to finally be at the point where book is going to come out into the world. So very excited.
Well, I'm going to let Laura introduce you, but I want to point out that Julie's book is called Profit Over Production, Understanding Dental Business and Choose Your Practice Destiny. It is there'll be links for how you can stay in touch with Julie about this book in the chat. All right, Laura, go ahead.
thrilled to introduce one of my faves, Julie Woods. Julie graduated from Baylor College as a periodontist in 2004 and had her own practice for the following 15 years. But between her educational and business loans, she was often left feeling crushed by debt. Most business consultants push production as the main metric of success, but at the height of her practice's production in 2017, she was burned out and making less money than ever before. The temptation to walk away from dentistry instead led her to Mike Michalowicz's book, Profit First, which turned out to be the key that unlocked her financial freedom. Her practice is now debt-free with a financially supported staff, and all without taking one extra lick of work. She's since become a certified Profit First professional and believes fully in working smarter, not harder. In her spare time, she and her husband love to travel, eat delicious foods, and text me home repair updates, which I appreciate. Her book will arrive on August 8th, which I personally think is the best day of August, and I am happy to share a book birthday with you, Julie. And I will put how you can connect with her so you can stay informed of when her book is out and other good things in the chat. AJ?
I love these personalized bios that Laura does. It's so fun. Julie, just so everybody knows, you don't have to be affiliated with Profit First to be in Money. It just happens to be a coincidence tonight that both Kasey and Julie are next up on the pub calendar, and they both are affiliated in some way. But while you're a Profit First professional, Julie, you are not an accountant. You're a dentist.
Correct. Yes.
So your book comes out in August. And tell us, what are your book fundamentals? So obviously you're writing for dentists, but is it some specific kind of dental practice owner?
Yes. So basically those that were me 5 years ago, or end of 2017, 2018. So struggling financially, burned out, not even sure I want to keep being a dentist because I didn't really know what to do. I had done everything that I thought to do the right thing and be successful. And I was worn out and ready to go. So yeah, it's for struggling practice owners that think the only way to fix things is to produce more or do more.
And what is your core message to readers?
Producing more does not mean you will make more, nor does it ensure that you will be happy. And my promise, because I know you're about to ask me, after reading the book, you will learn better ways to achieve a financially secure practice without having to produce more, allowing you the mental bandwidth to determine how you want to practice, or if you even do.
I love that. And I love that, just like Kasey, you're dispelling this conventional wisdom in your industry, which is the solution is to produce more. Just like Kasey mentioned, that you've got struggle is just part of it. People in the dental industry think, well, producing more is just how we do it, right?
Yeah.
So for dispelling that myth as well. Set up this excerpt for us.
Okay, well, I have a couple. So we're going to start with sort of my pain point. And we're going to fast forward to me in the author journey. And so I'll kind of tell you when we make that transition, but just so you kind of get an idea of where we were. So we're back at the end of 2017 to start with. And okay. I'll just take it from here. And I'm going to read from notes because I can't watch you guys or I'll be freaking out like Kasey.
You're gonna be awesome, Julie. Here, all right, take it away.
All right. Rushing out of my office after seeing my morning patients, I headed to McDonald's for a double cheeseburger Happy Meal. I was anything but happy. I tried to ignore my nausea long enough to choke down my food as tears dropped onto the yellow wrapper. This had become my routine. It was the end of 2017, the hardest year I'd experienced since I'd started private practice in 2004. I was burned out, but I didn't even really know what that meant. I dreaded Sunday evenings, going to work, and even eating lunch in the office. I no longer had the energy or mental bandwidth to interact with my team or put up a good front. Many afternoons, I ended up in tears. My daughter, Rachel, a preteen at the time, even asked my husband if I was okay. That spring, my husband, Brad, a general and trauma surgeon at a local hospital, was finding his current position untenable and on the verge of his own burnout. We had been married just short of 2 years, but he understood that due to my practice and my daughter, we could not leave Topeka, Kansas. One week, he felt so exhausted, frustrated, and discouraged that he printed out his resignation letter just in case and carried it with him to work. Before the week was over, he had turned in his notice and was soon to be unemployed. I was supportive as Brad began actively pursuing job leads and felt somewhat relieved when he was offered a job at one of the hospitals in the Kansas City area, a little over an hour from our home in Topeka. I had no idea how much resentment would slowly start to build as he began his new job and spent half his time away from us. Now we had 2 mortgages to pay. Since he had to be within 20 minutes of the hospital when he was on call, and we were at the stage of life where we did not want to rent an apartment. The pressure for me to produce more at my office only intensified. I became more anxious, more overwhelmed. However, I did what was necessary and worked more, produced more. We only took the vacations we already had scheduled. Even though I was miserable at work and truly felt like I was a hamster on a wheel I couldn't hop out of, I kept at it. I didn't know what else to do. As the year wound down, I knew I had done what I'd set out to do. Production was up, as were our collections. So why was there no money in the bank? All the once-a-year bills were piling up, and our Christmas luncheon was days away. Since I purchased the practice in 2006, I have passed out crisp new $100 bills like a total baller at the end of the luncheon. Okay, look, I'm really not that cool. But it was the highlight of the year for my crew. And before anyone gets too hung up on these bonuses being actual cash, I paid what was owed to the IRS as the bonuses were recorded as part of staff payroll. I barely had enough money to cover a round of burgers at McDonald's, much less take my crew to our normal lunch and pay them. There was not enough money in the bank. I could not make sense of where the money had gone. Sitting in the car, crying into my cheeseburger, I knew there was only one option. I had to go home and ask Brad if we could put some of our own money back into the business. I could not let my team down. They were counting on that money and would have never believed we didn't have it. Maybe you've never been so desperate as to settle for the comfort of fast food, but I'm guessing you've gone home, poured a generous serving of wine in your because patience glass, and ruminated over the frustrations of owning a dental office. Or if you are way healthier than I am, maybe you've gone home and ridden your Peloton to the point of fatigue, allowing your mind to clear. And instead of a stomach ache or a headache, you got to enjoy the rush of serotonin. I'm sure that putting caffeine, burgers, and wine on repeat didn't do my body any favors. However, I was able to get up each morning, see all the patients on the schedule that December, and enjoy our annual luncheon and secret sock exchange. So that's where I'm going to pause, and that's where I stumbled upon the book Profit First, and changed my life, literally changed my life. Talk about a transformative book, AJ. We've gone from 2 mortgages and, having practice debt, education debt, all of that. And now we're 5 years later and we're debt free with everything. So I'm going to switch over to 4 years from that moment to when I'm writing the book. So here we go. One evening while I was sitting at our dining room table, frantically typing chapters to submit to my editor, AJ, the following conversation ensued with my teenage daughter. She was a sophomore in high school at the time and considering becoming a dentist. Rachel asked, "Mom, why are you writing a book? What's it even about? Is it even going to sell?" "Rachel, do you really think I would write a book that I didn't believe would sell? That I would spend this much time and energy if I didn't think this book would help someone?" "Well, you're a dentist. You're not an author. You don't even know how to write." Whoa. Well, I'm sure my high school English teacher would agree about my writing capabilities. Realizing that my daughter thought my abilities were limited to my job title caught me off guard. To her credit, I am a dentist. Actually, I'm a periodontist. I've worked in private practice since completing my periodontal residency at Baylor College of Dentistry in 2004, and have owned my practice for more than 17 years. At the time of the conversation, I technically was a published author, as my thesis project can be found in the 2005 Journal of Periodontology, but I didn't mention that to her. "Just because I'm a dentist doesn't mean I don't know how to write," I said. "Mom," she replied with complete disdain, "only people who go to college to learn to write books. What is your book even about? Do you really want to know?" Yes. This book is for dentists who are frustrated because they want to have a successful dental practice, but think the only way to do that is to produce more, or in other words, do more dentistry. They don't realize that producing more does not always mean making more money, and that it certainly doesn't guarantee they will have a successful practice. "Dentists are smart," Rachel said. "They make a lot of money. Why doesn't it work for them to just see more patients and do more dentistry?" Well, most dentists have only been taught to focus on production and collections, or the money that comes in. Many don't understand as much about the money going out. Isn't that common sense? Don't they understand as business owners they can't spend more than they bring in? Think back to what Mr. Thomas taught you in 8th grade, I said. How only about 40% of Americans could cover a $1,000 emergency. Dentists are just people. We had very little instruction about the business side of owning a practice when we were in dental school. Mr. Thomas was Rachel's 8th grade math teacher and an avid fan of Dave Ramsey. So he sprinkled many principles of Ramsey's book, The Total Money Makeover, into his teaching. Rachel had learned more about cash management in 8th grade than I had before graduating from dental school. I thought it was telling that my daughter could not fathom dentists didn't understand business basics or how to handle money. However, as a dentist who had once had major financial woes of my own, I know this scenario is all too common. Dentistry's dirty little secret. In 2020, dentists had to deal with COVID-19, a suggested shutdown of services and supply issues. The Great Resignation followed. While global pandemics are known to wreak havoc, I certainly did not expect this one to threaten dental practice viability on the scale that it did. Social media became a place for us to meet, even when forced to isolate, and there I witnessed and felt the pressure to survive more than ever. It became evident that without government assistance, many dentists would no longer be able to serve their patients or communities. Dental service organizations, DSOs, and private equity firms used the uncertainty to their advantage and were able to take over a greater share of dental practice ownership. While I was alarmed at how quickly things were changing within the industry, from one practice owner to another, I totally understood. Way before COVID-19 brought its unique set of challenges, I was exhausted, struggling with physical ailments, unable to understand how to correct my money problem. Being a solo practitioner was far harder than I imagined, and it would be harder than I imagined it would be, and not nearly as glamorous. I was desperate and needed help. I didn't even know where to begin. All I knew for certain was that producing more dentistry wasn't the answer. A microscopic virus exposed dentistry's dirty little secret. Dentists lack business knowledge. Specifically, many dentists don't know how to talk about or deal with money and don't want to. I know I didn't. Dentists go to dental school to become dentists and figure the rest will sort itself out. Unfortunately, that simply isn't true. My colleagues were in crisis mode back in 2020, struggling to maintain their businesses. I knew that I had the expertise to help them navigate financial uncertainty. I had turned my business around drastically, reducing my overhead costs and increasing profitability. I enjoyed talking about money, numbers, and grants. I never imagined I would write a book, much less a prescriptive nonfiction book. But when I started sharing more about my practice and financial struggles, I received numerous requests for a book that other dentists could reference. Some asked for some version of accounting for dentists, others for something along the lines of Profit First for Dummies. The overwhelming need of so many colleagues sparked the inspiration for this book. I began to pursue writing a good book that would help readers transform their dental practices and, more importantly, their lives. I'm on a mission to bust the myth that all you need to do is produce more to be successful, stable, and happy. You and I can no longer be just dentists who don't understand business. We must learn to think and act like a dental CEO, or what I like to refer to as the dentist officer in charge, to maintain a sustainably profitable practice. Money management alone won't bring success or happiness. However, the financial security derived from owning a sustainably profitable dental practice will allow you the time and mental bandwidth to figure out how to live the life you want. I believe that if you learn better ways to work smarter, not harder, you can then determine if you are actually practicing the way you want to, if you want to work more or expand, or if you even want to be a dentist. I hope that in reading about my own experiences and financial struggles, as well as the major wins that have come since I learned to think like a DOC, you'll be inspired to share more openly about the good and bad, the ups and downs of owning a dental office. Collaboration and working as a team to navigate cash and business management will help us conquer our limitations and become profitable, what I like to refer to as summiting Profit Mountain. By doing it together, we can go faster and with fewer missteps, allowing us the time and mental bandwidth to figure out how we want to practice when we are no longer financially bound to produce more. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'm dying to read my snarky little comment or tidbit of the note to readers, but I think I'm going to stop there.
Why don't you want to read it? What? Why don't you just read it? You can't tease us like that. Just read it.
Okay. So I was inspired by AG's little thing, and she told me to go all in. So I will tell you that I went all in. So I'm going to compare and contrast some things here. So keep that in mind. But a note about for whom this book is intended. If you consider yourself a savvy entrepreneur or business person, you might be as puzzled as my teenager who wondered, how is it possible that dentists don't know their numbers or how to handle day-to-day operations? If so, this book is not for you. If you're one of the people on social media who constantly post or comment about your bazillion-dollar practice or your multiple offices, this book is not for you. If you own several luxury cars and a home that could be featured on TV as well as a vacation home, you definitely need to put the book down. However, if you find yourself drowning in debt while questioning why on earth you went through all the trouble of becoming a dentist, you're holding the right book. If you're wondering how any dentist could afford a second home while you can barely make the mortgage payment on your primary residence, you're holding the book that was written for you. It was never in my 5 or 10-year plan to write a book. I wrote it because dentists asked me to. In fact, they begged. They wanted a reference resource and have been too afraid to ask for help elsewhere. So many dentists who are both clients and friends talk to me about their insecurities and questions about running a business. Many think they're the only ones with these problems. Dentists have felt isolated and alone for many years. Dentists that have fallen short of astronomical benchmarks tend to feel more intimidated than before. They've become quieter, embarrassed, afraid to ask questions, even amongst friends. In a time when dentists should feel more supported and less alone, they feel like imposters, like they don't measure up to their peers and like they have no one to ask for advice since it's expected they already know how to do all the things. The dentists for whom I wrote this book are willing to increase their business knowledge, learn from others, improve their skills, and question the old way of doing things. They do not think they have it all figured out, nor do they boast of their success or happiness. They want to work together to make things better. If you're a dentist who wants to better your practice life by learning how to understand the business dentistry, keep reading. You will learn that and how to practice the way you want and can then help others do the same. You will be a true trailblazer, leading the way for the next generation of dentists so they too have the opportunity to become successful entrepreneurs.
I love that. Why, that's not snark. That's not snarky.
I cut some of the snarkiest, but
I'm gonna check with Kasey Anton on the snark meter because I feel like it's not that, right? Kasey, it's not. No, Casey's like, no, that's good. I'm glad you read that. I'm so glad. So I want to ask you, and I think we know from hearing that, but what is the change in the world you want to see through this book?
So I knew you were going to ask that because it's like one of my favorite questions that you ask, right? Because it's like, wow, it's so powerful. Like, yes, this book could really change a life. And as you know, and it's part of your own, goal is for writing the book to change our lives. And it certainly has. But I want it to change one reader at a time's life, which will ultimately change a lot of lives. But I don't want anyone to struggle like I did. I had a book and I was able to do it, but so many have picked up Mike's book and don't see how to make it work. And kind of like Kasey's, you kept making me lean into this isn't Julie's version of Mike's book. Give us more. Mm-hmm. So it's not just profit first. There's probably three out of 12-ish chapters about sort of profit first and the bank details. It's much more than that. And it's all the things that would help make your life a little bit easier with the practice. So I want people to be able to do that so they can figure out if they hopefully they'll find the joy again of being a dentist, because I'm back to loving my practice and, not wanting to walk away. And I am surprised to hear that. Even saying that now is crazy to me. Or if not, they will realize that's okay too, because there's just a lot of pressure to get it right.
And what was been surprising about your author journey? I mean, I will say, I don't think you are the same person you were when you started this process. I feel like you've grown in so many ways, but what's been surprising for you?
Even knowing it would take so long, I would say. And I can remember you telling me that most books of this nature are 40 to 60,000 page or words. And I was like, there's no way I'm gonna be. It's like literally at 60,000 or like right at it. It's 300 pages. I just got it back from the typesetter for an edit. So it's just it's so much more. And I think you made me realize that I do know a whole lot more than I even realized that I knew. So I think that part of it has been the most aha-ish. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot harder. It's much more emotional than I ever thought it would be to write a book. Well, I see Laura over there. Yeah.
It is emotional. People don't expect that, but it's challenging. All these preconceived notions you have about your own abilities. It brings up your inner critic. It's just like basically inviting your inner critic into bed with you every day. It's just a constant thing. And then it makes you think, do I know this? Why do I think this? And then you have to put yourself out there in a way that's uncomfortable. So kudos to you and kudos to Kasey for staying the course and delivering a book that is going to make a difference. So Julie, your book is coming out in August. The best way for people, what's the best thing that people can do to keep track so that they can keep track of when it's available?
So for now, the best way will be to stay in touch with me via Facebook or Instagram. Profit First Dentist is how I'm listed under those. And then my webpage is just drjuliewoods.com. There's nothing about my own book on that yet. Because it's not until I have a hard release date and it's not available for pre-sale yet. So Laura said August 8th, but I'm thinking between me and Troy's moving. And so it may not be more till like late August. So we'll see, but it's coming, you know.
It doesn't matter. You just said the magic words. I just got the book from my typesetter. So this is one of the final milestones. So we know it's not, it's just a matter of it's just a matter of a few weeks or several weeks or.
And it looks like a real book now. Like that was exciting. Like I have a cover and I have graphics that don't look like spreadsheets anymore. It's awesome. So I'm very excited.
Awesome. Well, we're so proud of you, Julie, and I love to see you on this home stretch and you as well, Kasey. Thank you for joining us tonight. Thank you for your commitment to writing a truly remarkable book when you had other options. That shows me your courage and your commitment to excellence. And couldn't be more proud of you. Everybody, this is our last Monday night until the fall. Thank you for showing up to support. We will post a replay on YouTube later this week. And have a great night, everyone.